Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to be sharing my top 10 favorite Dominion expansions. Now that there's like 15 expansions to Dominion, and who knows if another one will come out or not, I thought this would be a good time to share my top 10 favorite expansions. Obviously, there's at least 5 expansions that didn't make my top 10, but you know, they all can't make it. So anyways, let's get started. So Seaside is my 10th most favorite expansion. Now, I do have a lot of good I do have a lot of cards in this expansion that I enjoy, but a lot of them are just okay cards. You know, they're not super spectacular in my eyes. They're just simply okay. And there's quite a few in this expansion that I just don't simply like at all. But anyways, I thought I'd also share and show you my favorite cards from each expansion, as well as obviously talk about the expansion and why I like it. Now obviously Seaside is the expansion that obviously brought durations to the game of Dominion, and so that's why it's still in my top 10, because there are some really good durations in this expansion that I like, and it is the expansion that introduced us to durations, so it's always going to have a special place. Hopefully another expansion doesn't come out, because potentially it could push this one down if it's really good too. Who knows? But anyways, so these are my top 10 cards from Dominion Seaside. Now I'm probably not going to talk about them too much. I have already in many videos explained how the cards work and possibly if I like them or not. So I'm just going to show you briefly the cards that I like from this expansion. Now, it was actually very hard for me to choose 10 favorites, because a lot of the cards I just simply think are okay from this expansion. And even some of these in this 10 list I think are just simply okay. Like, I think Monkey is an okay card. I think Seaside's pretty good too, but it's mostly okay. Sea Chart, I think it's an okay card. Okay, so now we're starting to get to the cards I really like. So I really like Outpost. I like the fact that you get an extra turn after this one, but you only have 3 cards to your next hand. But depending on what those 3 cards you get, you could potentially have a good turn. But you don't want to buy too many of these, because then you'll end up having a hand of 2 Outposts, and you're only going to get to utilize one of them anyway. Ambassador was a removed card from Seaside, which is another reason why this one is number 10, is a lot of my favorite cards, at least a couple of my favorite cards that are in this expansion, are no longer in any new editions of Seaside as they continue to make more Seaside copies. So Ambassador was removed, but I really like Ambassador because it is an attack, but it's a good way of getting rid of cards you don't want anymore, but then giving them to other players. That's why I like it so much. Tide Pools is a new card, and I really enjoy this one. You get lots of cards, you get an action, and then at the next turn you get your penalty of having to discard 2 cards. So you get a powerful turn now for a weaker turn next turn. And if you were to play multiple of these in one turn, whew, man, you're going to have a really weak next turn for sure. But anyways, it's a good one, Tide Pools. Then we've got Pirate. I really like this one. You would think the name would mean an attack card, but it's not. But it's a reaction, and it rewards you, allows you to gain a treasure costing up to 6 to your hand when another player gains a treasure. You get to play this from your hand. So it's really cool. It rewards you for when your opponents get treasures. That's pretty cool. The Kraken is a card I replaced with another card, but I really like this new attack card. You know, everybody gets a Wasteland, of course. You still get to draw cards, but then at the next turn you get cards, extra cards, but then you have to discard cards. I think that's a really swell card. Kraken. Embargo, oh man, Embargo is just one of my most favorite cards, but from the expansion, but once again, it was removed from this expansion. But man, getting to put embargo tokens on a pile, so that way if somebody wants to buy a card from that pile, they're going to get a bunch of minus point cards depending on how many embargo tokens on there. And man, I've had so much fun just embargoing the province pile, so that way players have to go for other alternative victory cards unless they really want to get those minus point cards too. I just love doing that, especially when there's other victory cards in the game. I just love embargo. It's just so much fun to mess with my opponents. And then my favorite card from the expansion is Caravan. Just a nice, easy little duration that gets you a card at the start of your next turn. And if you have a lot of these, you can chain a lot of these caravans. You can have a lot of cards for your next turn. Also, you're not wasting any action playing this, and you're getting a card. So it's just a really good card all around. So yes, Seaside is my 10th favorite expansion to Dominion. So let's move on. Okay, so my 9th most favorite expansion is Empires. Now, Empires is the expansion that introduced us to landmarks. Landmarks are the only, this is the only expansion that has landmarks, which are basically somewhat similar to events, except you don't purchase them, and you basically get victory points from them. So it's just it's an alternative way of getting victory points, which is really cool. But it also has events in it. It's got some duration cards in it. And it's also the expansion that basically introduced us to split piles. It's not the only expansion out there that has split piles, but it's the first one that has split piles in it. So it's just a fun expansion. But like I said, it's my 9th, so it's not my most favorite expansion. But anyways, let me show you the cards that I like from the expansion. So I like the Groundskeeper. You're not wasting anything playing it. And then if you potentially are buying, you're going to gain a victory card the turn that you play this. You're going to get a nice extra victory point token, which is cool. And potentially if you play a few of these in a turn, you could get a few victory tokens. It's a nice card. Sacrifice. You can trash a card from your hand, and depending what it is, you get victory. You get something cool. Like if you trash an estate, for instance, you get 2 victory tokens. Oh, I love that. Trashing an estate that only gets you 1 victory point and, fills your deck with useless cards you can't utilize. But in exchange, you're getting 2 victory points that aren't going to be obviously filling up your deck with useless cards. Oh, I love that. That's why I love Sacrifice. The City Quarter, it is a debt card, so you're going to have to pay. You can basically buy this early on, but then you're going to have to take the debt of how much you weren't able to pay for it, and then you're going to have to pay off the debt. But it's just a really good card. You get extra cards based on how many action cards you have. So potentially you could get a lot of cards as well as those actions. The Farmer's Market, man, I just love playing with this card. It's so interactive. You get to put victory tokens on the pile. And as those victory tokens continue to rise, this one's going to give you 1 money extra for every one that's on it. And then when there's 4... and you're the player that plays this, when there's 4 of them on there, you immediately get the 4 victory point tokens in exchange for trashing this Farmer's Market. Oh, I just love that. It's a fun, interactive card. Settlers here is part of a split pile. So as a whole, these 2 cards are really cool. I mean, Settlers is definitely sort of a copper strategy, and I like copper strategies, so that's why it's in the list. But these are just, they have so much good synergy. I mean, if you're playing with the Bustling Village, you could look through your discard pile and you could take a Settlers from your discard pile and play it. So now, hey, you're not only getting 1 card in 3 actions, but then you could potentially play this and add to that, getting another card in an action. So you're not wasting an action playing it again. And this is giving you a copper. You can reveal a copper from the discard pile and put it into your hand. So it's getting you possibly another treasure too. So it's just an interesting little copper strategy that I like, and that's why it's in my favorite list in this expansion. And then another split pile I do like is Encampment and Plunder. Now at first I don't really like the Encampment because I want to try to get either a gold or a plunder before I start playing these encampments. But even if you, because I don't want to end up putting the encampment back onto its pile, because I want to get to the plunders as soon as possible, so that way I can play them for their awesome benefit, as every time you play them you get a victory token. I like that a lot. But then, you get a powerful action card. If you do manage to get yourself a gold early on, you could potentially play this and keep it, And then once you get the plunders and you have golds, and every time you play encampment, most likely is what is often going to be the case, is you're going to have one of these cards, a plunder or a gold, so you don't lose your encampment too. So it's just a really fun, card combo for sure. It's really fun. It's got a lot of synergy. I just really love those 2 cards. And then we've got the Enchantress. It messes up the first action your opponents play, but then you get 2 cards in your next turn. That's cool. I like that. Catapult and Rocks. Now, Rocks is okay. I'm not saying it's my favorite, but the Catapult is what's really cool, and then it's just thematic nonetheless. But the really cool thing is, you know, you could trash a silver, and if you did, each other player would get a -point card, and they'd also discard down to 3 cards in hand. If you just simply trash like a copper with this card, then you still make everyone discard down to 3 cards in hand. So it's really cool. And then, you know, whatever you trash, and if it is 3 or more, it's also potentially going to give them a -point card too. So trashing the estates with this isn't going to do anything, but besides trashing the estate. But definitely a good way of getting rid of silvers if you've got a ton of them anyway. Getting to attack your opponents with a 2-fold attack is pretty cool. And since technically Rocks is the same thing, it would also hit your opponents with 2 attacks. It's just awesome. A nice combo for sure. And then I really like the Archive. You get to set aside 3 cards, and then every turn, including the turn you play this, you get to put 1 into your hand. Oh, that's cool. I love that. I just love that. You're not wasting an action playing it. Oh, it's just super fun. Archive. The Chariot Race. Oh, this is just so fun. It's just so interactive. I mean, if you've got the highest card, then you get a victory point token. That's what I love about it. You know, if you got the highest card in this race, it's just awesome. I just love this card. My favorite card from the expansion for sure. Then I've got some favorite events. I really like Donate. It's a good way of getting rid of all the cards at once that you don't want. Maybe once you've gotten yourself a couple of silvers, you're probably going to be like, okay, it's time to donate all the coppers I have. And it's time to donate all the estates I have. And this card lets you do that all at once for the cost of 8 debt tokens. Oh, it's awesome. Then Dominate it's expensive, but what's really cool is not only you're getting a province, but you're getting 9 victory tokens. So it's like you're getting 2 provinces and a duchy, but at the cost of only 1 card filling up your deck. Oh, I just love that. Dominate is awesome. I picked 3 of my favorite landmarks because these 2 are very similar. Museum will get you 2 victory points for every differently named card you have, which is awesome. The Orchard gets you 4 victory points per differently named action cards you have 3 or more copies of. So it rewards you for getting at least 3 copies of each action card. And, you know, if you got 3 of all 10 of the Kingdom supply piles that are, and they're all action cards, that's a lot of victory points you could potentially get. Same thing with Museum. And then I also really like the Fountain because, once again, it makes it so if you want the extra 15 extra victory points, you're going to have to buy 3 more coppers, which means you don't want to get rid of your 7 coppers. You want to get those 3 coppers so you can get the 15 victory points. So yeah, just another card I like. So that's Empires, and that's my number 9. Okay. My number 8 is actually an expansion I don't own. So I'll just have to show you a picture of it because I don't have the actual expansion here. So that's Dominion Allies. Dominion Allies is my number 8. This one has split piles. And it's got 4 cards in the split piles, and I like that. I like that a lot. So that's one of the reasons why I like this expansion. That's why it's number 8. It's just a really good expansion. I like the Broker here. It's a good card. I like Barbarian. Oh, I do like Barbarian a lot. Each other player trashes the top card of their deck. Oh, that's awesome. So that means it's a possible card that can trash a province. That's cool. Of course, they're still going to get a victory card that's cheaper, like a duchy, for instance, if they happen to lose their province to this Barbarian. But then otherwise, they get a -point card. So if the card isn't like a 3 or more card, then they're going to get a -point card. So that's awesome. So they're still gonna get hammered hard, even if it's not a good card they're losing. Capital City is just a really good card. Possibly getting extra treasure. Possibly getting to draw extra cards. Modify is cool because you can trash a card, but then You can choose to basically make the card like a remodel, allowing you to gain a card costing up to 2 more than it, or you can just simply trash a card for a card in an action. That's a really good choice. I like that. The Highwayman, at the start of your next turn, you discard this from play, and you get +3 cards. So that's really cool. But until then, the first treasure each other player plays does nothing. So they have to okay, I better have a copper in my hands and play that first, and it won't give me treasure. Because if I play a silver or a gold, I'm not getting that treasure. So it's really powerful towards the end of the game when they've probably gotten rid of their coppers, It's just a really good attack card. And then I like a lot of the split piles that come with this expansion. But, so this is one of my favorites. The Battle Plan is an action card that rewards you if you reveal an attack card. Oh, I like that a lot. Archer is a cool attack card because you get to choose a card that they have to discard. But it's not horrible because you're only choosing one card that they're going to have to discard. And they first get to take a card out of their hand that they definitely want to keep, so they don't have to worry about losing their favorite card from their hand. So it's a good one for sure. And then, of course, Warlord's another attack card that's pretty good. And then you've got Territory, which is a victory card. Oh, it's just a good split pile. But the first 2 cards are my favorites, of course. And then this split pile, I really like the Odysseys. The old map is just pretty fun. Because you could discard a card to get a card, but you're also getting a card anyways. The Voyage is really cool because you can take an extra turn after this one. Sunken Treasure, you can gain an action card you don't have a copy of in play. That's cool. But the Distant Shore, that's where it's at. It's a card that's going to give you 2 victory points, but it's also an action card too, getting you 2 cards in an action. But then you're also gaining an estate as well. So man, I just love these cards. I really like the Royal Gallery because you can set aside a non-duration action card from your hand, and then you get to play it at the start of your next turn. I did that quite a lot in my last game. I had a lot of fun playing with Royal Galley. Courier is cool because you can discard the top card of your deck, and then you can look through your discard pile, and you can play an action or a treasure from it. So that's really cool. Now, of course, that's contingent on you having a discard pile full of cards, but still, it's a really good card letting you play either an action or a treasure. That's cool. And this one's just, just interesting. You play this, and then you have to discard 3 cards, and then if you discarded at least 1, you get 3 money. There are ways to mitigate it so that you've played your entire hand, and you might have a ton of cards, and then you just discard victory cards, and then you're getting 3 money. That's cool, but in the beginning of the game, you could still potentially just simply draw a couple of estates and a copper, and you're getting 3 money. That's just cool. It's just a good card. And then you gain it, you get 2 favors, and if you ever trash it, you get 2 favors. Oh, it's just a fun, good card. And then this expansion has allies in it, something to do with the favors that you gain from the expansion, right? So these are my 2 favorite allies right here that I just like. This one gives you extra turns for every 5 favors that you spend. That's cool. This one could potentially give you extra victory points if you have a lot of 2-costing cards in the game, or this gives you a reason to keep your estates around, so that way you can pair your favors up for 2 extra victory points. Basically meaning that your estates are now producing almost 3 victory points in a sense, because you're keeping them around and you're pairing them with the favors at the end of the game. It just makes it worthwhile keeping around. So that's Dominion Allies. My 8th favorite expansion. So anyways, that's my 8th favorite expansion. And number 7, my 7th favorite expansion is Dominion Alchemy. Okay, now, most people don't like it because, it's hard to get the cards because they're potion cards. But I really enjoy this little tiny expansion. And since there isn't very many cards that come with this expansion, I only picked 6 cards that come with this expansion to show you that are my favorites. University allows you to gain action cards costing up to 5. Oh, that is awesome. I really like it. Now, this is banned for Dominion Online. probably because it slows the game down. A lot of people think it's the worst card ever because it's similar to an attack card, but really it's not really much of an attack card. You're just taking over your opponent's turn for a short period of time. You're not, and if you use their turn to trash their cards, they don't lose their trashed cards either. So they're not losing anything by you taking over their turn. The only thing you're doing is using their turn to buy yourself a card or gain yourself a card on their turn with their cards. That's all you're really doing with this card. Of course, I changed it because I didn't like the original theme of the card. But still, I just really like this card a lot. And it's not as bad because sometimes you use this card, but you don't know what is in your opponent's hand when you use it. And so you could end up taking over their turn, which is like awful. They might have 3 coppers and 2 estates in their hand or something similar to that. And then they're like, thank you for taking over my turn, because then they get to take another turn anyways. And then maybe those cards end up being good. So it's not like a super horrible card as everyone thinks it is. Golem. Lots of people like Golem because you just get to play a lot of action cards after playing this. And you search your deck until you find those action cards. That's really cool. I really like Golem. The Poison Apples, which I changed the theme of the name of. It's just a really fun little attack card. It's not a super extreme attack card, but you could potentially just reveal cards and play a lot of cards from this one card. It's just really fun to play with. Vineyard is really cool because it's easy to purchase as long as you have a potion around, because it doesn't cost any treasure. But what's really cool is it rewards you for having lots of action cards and giving you extra victory points for all the action cards you have, which is why it's my second favorite from the expansion. And then my most favorite card from this expansion is Apothecary, because this is the best copper strategy card that ever existed. You get to reveal 4 cards from your deck. If you get to put all the revealed coppers and potions into your hand from the 4, and then you get to put the rest back in any order. So it's rewarding you for drawing a lot of coppers, definitely, but you could potentially get a potion in there. It's just really cool. And then you're getting a card in action, so you could just keep shading this to get just tons of cards and tons of coppers, and assuming you buy a few more than 7 coppers. It's just a really fun card. I've had a lot of fun playing this, and I've even beat people with this card who decided to go the trashing route, where they trashed all their coppers and trashed all their estates, and I didn't trash my coppers and I didn't trash my estates, and I played with this card over and over again, and I won the game because I just had powerful turn after powerful turn thanks to this one card. It's just an awesome card. Most favorite card from Alchemy. So that's Alchemy. All right, so my 6th favorite expansion is Cornucopia. It's not guilds, but it's Cornucopia. It's my 6th favorite expansion. Now, once again, this is a small expansion, especially since we're not including guilds into the mix here, but it is a small one, so I'll just share my 6 favorite cards from the expansion. The Jester is really cool because you can gain cards that so each other player discards the top card of his deck. Then if it's a victory card, they get a minus point card. But then otherwise, they gain a copy of it, or you do. So maybe the card they reveal is a copper. Well, then you just tell them they gain a copy of it, so they get a copper. So they don't exactly like that. But if it's a victory card, they're also getting a minus point card. But then if it's a good card, like a gold or an action card, you can be like, oh, I'm going to gain that gold. I'm going to gain a copy of that gold, and I'm going to gain a copy of that action card. So it's just a fun card. Crocodile, obviously I changed the theme of it because I didn't like the original. But it's just really fun attack card. You get 2 cards, you discard 2 cards. But what's really fascinating about it, besides the fact that everyone gets a minus point card, is it basically adds an additional kingdom card to the supply, which is really cool. So instead of having 10 kingdom cards in the supply, you have 11, thanks to this card. And that 11th card ends up being basically a block to this card. So if they have it in their hand, they can reveal it. They can block the attack, basically, so it doesn't hurt them. So that's really cool. And for obviously I've got a nice little hippo token or something, because you know, thematically, crocodiles are only afraid of hippos. So that, you know, that's another card I really like from the expansion. Then we got Menagerie. It's just a fun card that rewards you for variety. That's why I like it. It's just a fun card. Fairgrounds is another card that rewards you for variety by giving you extra victory points for a variety of differently named cards. Hunting Party is a good card, but then if you don't have a particular card, you just keep revealing cards until you reveal a card that's not in your hand. So it potentially will get you something new that you don't have already in your hand, which is cool. It's just rewarding you for variety. Again, another reason why I like it so much. And then obviously I like Tournament because it gives you these prizes if you win the tournament, so to speak. And the prizes are really cool. In fact, most of them are very cool. And one even is an awesome attack card too that I really like, called Followers. And that's the main reason why I like the tournament, is just trying to get that follower card. But anyways, that's my favorite cards from this expansion, Cornucopia. Okay, so now we're on to number 5, my 5th favorite expansion, which is going to be an expansion that used to be my favorite expansion, but after I've played a lot of the other expansions, this ended up becoming number 5, and that's Adventures. Now it's number 5. I can't believe it. It used to be my most favorite expansion. Now, this expansion has these Traveler cards, which aren't in my top 10 list as far as cards I like from this expansion. Adventures has durations in it, which until this came out, Seaside was the only expansion that had durations. So this was the second expansion that added durations once again. But then it adds reserve cards as well, which is unique to this expansion. And this was the first expansion that added events as well. So there's a lot of good cards in this expansion. So let me just show you some of my favorite cards. So Relic, I just really love this. It's an interesting attack card that works with tokens that are another thing that are unique to this expansion. It basically means that they have one less card, possibly one less card for their next hand, or possibly that when they draw a card, they're not going to get that card that they draw because it's -1 card, but it's just one. So if they were to play a card that let them get 3 cards, and they had this -1 card token onto their deck, instead of getting 3, they'd get 2 cards. So, you know, that's the deal. So it just messes with them a little bit. But yeah, that's one of my favorites. The Royal Carriage is very similar to Throne Room, except I can just kind of leave this Royal Carriage lying around on my my tavern mat, my reserve mat, whatever you want to call it. And then when a card I want to play again comes around, then I can take this card off to basically play it again. So really like Royal Carriage. Lost City is just a good card, giving you cards and actions, but then it's interactive too, so whenever you get it, whenever you buy it, gain it, your opponents get to draw a card. That's cool. So very interactive. Wine Merchant's cool because you get lots of money when you play it in a buy. But then, you know, whenever you have 2 unspent treasure, you get to take it off your tavern mat, which is cool. The Swamp Hag, it gets you a lot of money for your next turn, but until then, everyone gets a -point card if they buy or gain, if they buy a card. So it kind of makes them think, do I want to, if we're playing with 4 players and everyone plays this card and it's now your turn and everyone played this card previously, and you buy a card, you could potentially get 3 -point cards. Ouch. So at that point, you might be like, no, I'm not going to buy anything this turn, which would be bad too, of course. But maybe there's a good event that this game has that you could purchase instead. And if you purchase an event, well, that's not buying a card, so then you don't get hit by this attack. Duplicate. Man, the Duchy run. I just love this card. I'll just keep putting duplicate after duplicate after duplicate onto the tavern mat. And then at some point, when I've got a bunch of these duplicates sitting on the tavern mat, I will just call them again and again and again and again to get a copy of a Duchy, a copy of a Duchy, a copy of a Duchy. It's my strategy, the Duchy run. It's just really cool, and I've definitely won a lot of games thanks to duplicate, for sure. Coin of the Realm, it's just cool because you can keep it on your tavern mat when you're ready. When you need 2 actions, you can take it off for 2+ actions. It's a good card. Storyteller is just a really good card because you can utilize your treasures. You can utilize any treasure you want. You can utilize your silvers, your golds, whatever. And if you do, you can get a lot of cards doing it that way. Of course, I usually tend to just use it for my coppers to get a bunch of cards, to draw a bunch of cards. You can also use the treasure that the card gives you to draw a card too. But potentially, if you have a lot of coppers or other treasure cards like silvers and golds, you could potentially draw a lot of cards with Storyteller. So it's just a really good card. The Giant is a card that works with the Journey token. And so every other turn, it's a gentle giant. It does not attack. But then every other turn, it does attack. And then it trashes a card costing from 3 to 6 from your opponent's deck, from the top of their deck. But if it doesn't end up trashing a card from 3 to 6, they at least get a -point card for their troubles. So it's just a really fun card to play. That's an attack card. Definitely one of my favorite attack cards from the expansion. And my most favorite card, which is also an attack card, but it's not the reason why it's not an attack card. The reason why I like it isn't because it's an attack card. The reason why is because I like the duration effect of the attack card, which is it basically makes cards cost 1 less the turn that you play it and your next turn. So the turn you play it, everything costs 1 less. Your next turn, it stays in play. Your next turn, everything costs 1 less for you, which is really cool. So it's like a bridge or a highway, but it stays in play and it affects 2 turns instead of 1. And if you can play multiple bridge trolls, man, that means you're going to decrease the cost by a lot. It's just a really cool card. And then, of course, it does have an attack, which is just kind of a minor, weak attack. But still, it's a fun card to play with, and it's my most favorite card from the expansion, Bridge Troll. Okay, and then my 2 favorite events from the expansion. First of all, Lost Arts works with the with an action token, which basically gives a plus action to one of your action cards. So every time you play it, you get an extra action if you have a token on that pile, your token on that pile. And Inheritance basically turns your estates into an action card. So that's really cool. That's another reason why I like it. So that's my 5th favorite expansion, Adventures. Okay, let's move on. Let's see here. Let's quickly do this. We still got 4 expansions to go through. So my 4th favorite expansion, which obviously just came out, is Plunder. Okay, so now I already showed my favorite cards in the expansion, but I just really love this expansion. So I'm not going to show the cards. I'm not going to show my cards because I just showed them in my Dominion review the other day. So I'm not going to show the cards that I like from this expansion. But man, there's just so many good cards in this expansion. I like for instance, I love Grotto. That's like my favorite card from the expansion. But it's got so many durations. I think this expansion has the most durations ever. I'm pretty sure it does. And then it has so many treasures. I think it has more treasures than any other expansion either. It's just a great expansion. So much fun. And that's why it's my number 4, Plunder. Such a great expansion. I'm glad I got this one. Definitely a good one, for sure. Okay, let's move on. Still got 3 expansions to go over. Okay, my 3rd favorite expansion is Hinterlands. Man, I just love this expansion. It has so much synergy, too. It's another reason why I like the expansion, because it has so much synergy. So let me show you my cards briefly, since this is already a long video. So, Highway is obviously similar to Bridge from Intrigue. I just really like it. Decreases card cost. Cool. Stables, you can discard a treasure for extra cards in an action. That's cool. I like Tunnel because it's first of all, it's a victory card, but then it's also a reaction that you can basically get a gold if it's discarded. If this is discarded, you get a gold. That's cool. Oasis, it's going to give you a lot of good stuff, but then you also discard a card. And remember, this expansion has a lot of synergy. So if you get to discard a card, You can also discard your tunnel to get a gold that way. So that's another reason why I like it. Now, obviously, I changed the theme of this new card with this particular type of theme. But I really like this card because it's an attack card, but only if what you discard is actions. And there are some cards in this expansion that are like, oh yeah, sure, I will definitely discard this action so I can attack you because, man, I'm going to get a huge benefit if I do. And it's a powerful card, getting to draw 3 cards, and then you just discard 2. Oh, that's cool. I like it. It's a good card. Border Village. It's an expensive village variant, but when you gain it, you also get a cheaper card. So yeah, I'll do it. Good card. They removed this from the expansion, but man, it's like sort of a comper strategy, and everybody gets a -point card when you gain it, so it's not an attack, so Moat won't block it, for instance, but there are some reactions that will block it regardless. So it's still a good card. Scheme. Oh, man, I just love this. You get to basically set aside a card that you played for your next turn. Oh, that is such a scheme. I love it. Cartographer. This is cool. You're basically, controlling what you're going to get for your next turn or for the turn you're playing this by getting to look at the 4 cards from your deck. You could discard any number of them. Well, maybe I'll discard a tunnel to get a gold, too. You never know, but then you get a card in action. Oh, I just love the Cartographer. Awesome, awesome card. And then my most favorite card in this expansion was also just recently added to the expansion of Hinterlands. And that is when you gain, trash, or discard this, other than cleanup, you can play it. So, man, all those cards that I mentioned that let you discard cards, like that Venus Flytrap, the Cartographer, the Oasis. If somebody plays an attack card like Margrave or Berserker, and they make you discard cards with that, and this is discarded, you can reveal it when you discard it, and then you get to play it. Oh, I love it. It's awesome. It's just a really good card. It has so much synergy with a lot of the cards from this expansion that makes this the best card in my eyes from this expansion, Hinterlands. So Hinterlands is my 3rd favorite expansion. Such an awesome expansion. Man, it was hard. I almost put this higher because it's such a good expansion. Okay. All right, so that's my 3rd favorite expansion. My 2nd favorite expansion is Dark Ages. This is another expansion that has a lot of synergy. It has a ton of synergy, even more than Hinterlands did. But man, there's just so many fun cards in this expansion. It was hard just choosing 10 because I like almost every card in this expansion. It's such a great expansion. So let me just share with you my favorite cards from the expansion, my 10 favorites. So we got Procession here. It lets you play an action card from your hand twice, so like a throne room, but then you trash it and you gain a card costing exactly 1 more than it. Oh, that's an awesome card. I can think of a ton of cards where this is like, oh yeah, I'll definitely use my Procession on this action card because not only does trashing it get me something better than what I'm trashing, but it also has another effect. I'm getting to do something else because I'm trashing that card. Oh, I just love this card. Trashing, that's what this expansion is all about. Man, such a wonderful card. Okay, so Ironmonger is a good card too. I really like this card. You reveal the top card of your deck. You may discard it, and then either way, you get either a card or a treasure or an action, depending on what it was, And then, of course, you may discard it. So if it was a victory card, you could technically discard it too. It doesn't really go well with the theme because it's not like a trashing card, but it's still a really good card and a lot of fun to play with. The Rogue, it's an attack card that only is an attack card if there isn't anything in the trash. So if you play it and there's a card costing from 3 to 6 in the trash, you can gain one of them. But if there isn't anything in the trash to gain that costing from 3 to 6, every other player reveals the top 2 cards of their deck, and they have to trash one of them from 3 to 6. Oh, it's just a fun card. I love it. The Hermit. Now, the Hermit's a good way of getting rid of trashing cards. You get to look through your discard pile, which is cool, to trash a card. That's cool. But you can't trash treasures with it. So that's one thing you can't do. You can't trash treasures. But then it also lets you gain a card on the turn you play it, costing up to 3. And then if you discard this from play and didn't buy any cards, meaning you just gained a card costing up to 3 and you didn't buy anything, then you trash the Hermit to gain a Madman. And the Madman may be a one-time use card, but it's a powerful one-time use card, letting you draw a ton of cards and also giving you a couple actions. It's just a fun card, Hermit and Madman. Squire. Man, Squire's got so many good choices here. You can get 2 actions, you can get 2 buys, or you can gain a silver. It's just a fun choice card. And then if it ever gets trashed, you get an action card too, so I like that a lot. If there's a lot of attack cards, for sure. Now, obviously, I changed the theme of this. It used to be Mystic, now it's Ruined Fountain. But man, I just love this card. You name a card, and then you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's and then if you named it correctly, you get to put it in your hand. But okay, you didn't name it correctly. That happens a lot more often, right? But the cool thing is it doesn't let you draw any cards when you play it. So if you have 2 of these in play, the second time you will most likely know what that card is because you just revealed it and put it back. So now you'll know what it is. And so the second time you play it, you'll definitely know, and you're definitely going to get it then, right? It's just a really good card. And there's obviously some synergies with this card in this expansion where you'll know ahead of time of what card is on top of your deck before you play this card. It's just a fun card. Okay, Rats. Man, Rats is an awesome card, and the expansion kind of revolves around this one card. But man, it's just an easy way of getting rid of all your cards you don't want really, really fast. But you have to be careful with it because it can pretty much trash your entire deck, meaning the only thing you'll have left in your deck is Rats, which would be bad. So it's definitely a card you have to be cautious of and not let it go out of control. You definitely are going to want something to mitigate the damage. Like the next card, Fortress, which is an action card that can't be trashed because when it's trashed, it goes back into your hand. So that's a really good synergy with these two. These 2 cards are really synergetic for sure. But if you have another way of trashing cards too, besides Rats, then every time you trash a Rats, you get a card too. So, you're going to want to get rid of your Rats for sure. So those 2 cards are really good. And then the last 2 cards that I really like from this expansion is Death Cart and Earthquake, which used to be Cultist. Man, Earthquake, that's awesome. Everybody gets a Ruins, and then you may play another Earthquake from your hand. So like an Aftershock, really, right? That means they would get another Ruins, right? But you're getting 2 cards every time you play it. That's cool. I like that. And then if you ever trash this, you get to draw 3 cards. That's awesome. And then Death Cart here, you can trash an action from your hand, and if you don't, you trash this. But every time you play it, you get 5 money. But every time you gain it, you get 2 Ruins. So those Ruins are action cards. So hey, that's why you want this card. And that's why you want the Ruins. So that way you can just simply trash the Ruins to keep this card around, but also get that 5 treasure. You still get the 5 treasure if you don't trash anything but the Death card. So it's still a good card. And that's why it's my second favorite, and that's why Earthquake is my first favorite. So that's all of the cards from Dark Ages. That's my top 10. And man, I just love this expansion. I made the video, is this the best expansion ever? It almost is the best expansion ever because this is my second favorite. So what is my most favorite expansion? Well, there are still 6 expansions out there, not including the base game. There's Nocturne, there's Guilds, there's Prosperity, there's Renaissance, there's Intrigue, and then there's Menagerie, my most favorite expansion. Okay, what do I like about this expansion so much? Well, for one thing, Menagerie has exiling. You can exile cards to your exile mat. And basically, it's a good way of exiling or getting rid of your victory cards without actually getting rid of them. You can put them onto your exile mat so they're not filling up your deck with useless cards like tons of victory cards would do. But you still get those victory cards at the end of the game anyway, so you're not losing them. It's just a really cool way of basically setting aside or moving those victory cards out of your deck, but still keeping them around for their importance, as in, for their victory points at the end of the game. Man, it's just a wonderful expansion. So many cool cards. And then it adds ways, which are ways of animals. And I love animals. So this is definitely an animal expansion for sure, because of all the different ways. which basically change the way you play your actions. It gives you an alternative way of playing your actions, basically, with the ways of animals. And then there's horses, which are also animals, right? That are very powerful and useful. So man, this expansion has so much to offer. And it also adds, it still has events and stuff as well. So it's just a fun expansion. It's just my most favorite expansion. So let me show you my favorite cards from the expansion. So first we have supplies. It's a cheap little treasure card, but hey, every time you play it, you get a horse, and horses are awesome. The camel train, you can exile a non-victory card from the supply every time you play it. So hey, it's an easy way of getting victory cards early on, especially the expensive ones, because the way the exile mat works is when you buy a card, basically you can choose to take all of the cards that are that card you just bought off of your exile mat into your deck or into your discard pile, right? So that's just, a really good way of getting cards fast. And then every time you gain this camel train, you get a gold too, so it's an easy way to get golds early on. The bounty hunter, once again, it's another card that lets you exile a card from your hand, and if you didn't have a copy of it in exile, you get 3 treasure. Oh, that's cool. I like that a lot. The groom, you can gain a card costing up to 4, and then depending on what it is, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff. If it's a victory card, you can get a card in action. If it's a treasure, you get a silver. And if it's a horse, if it's an action card, you get a horse. That's just really cool. Totally worth doing. The Sanctuary, you get a card, you get an action, you get a buy, but then you may exile a card from your hand as well. That's a really good card. The Scrap, you can trash a card from your hand, and then depending on how much it costed in coins, you could do a whole bunch of different things here. You got so many different options, including gaining a horse, but you can only do one of each. The Displace is very similar to Remodel, except instead of trashing a card, you're exiling a card from your hand and then gaining a differently named card costing up to 2 more than it. So hey, I'm going to displace an estate. I didn't lose the estate. It's going to my exile mat instead of to the trash. But then I'm getting a card costing up to 2 more than it. Better than the estate, obviously. Cool. I just love Displace. Okay, well, the stockpile. The stockpile gets you 3 money and it gives you a buy. So it's a cheap gold that you can purchase early on. It's awesome. But then when you play it, you exile it. So that means you're going to have to buy another copy of it later down the road to get all your stockpiles off your exile mat. But still, it's just a really fun, easy card. It's a good way of getting, powerful cards early on in the beginning of the game because it's so cheap. Okay, so the Black Cat is my second favorite from the expansion. It's just an awesome card. On its own, it just gives you 2 cards when you play it. But then when your opponent gains a victory card, you can play this from your hand. And that means you can play, if you have multiple Black Cats in your hand when they decide to purchase a victory card or gain a victory card, you could get a lot of cards, and because it's not your turn, you could give them a lot of minus point cards because they bought a victory card or because they gained a victory card. So the Black Cat is just awesome. And then the Mastermind. At the start of your next turn, you may play an action card from your hand 3 times. Oh, that's cool. That's better than King's Court because you can play an action card from your hand 3 times at the start of your next turn. That's cool. Of course, it depends on if you've got a good action card in your hand to start with, because you don't know what's going to be in your hand next turn. That's the only downside to the card, but otherwise, it's a really good card, because then you're not wasting actions playing it and stuff like that. Oh, Mastermind, and then I just love the theme of the card with the snake in the background. Awesome. Mastermind, who's the mastermind in that picture? Is it the snake, or is it the evil guy, that's, thinking up malicious plans and things like that? Just a cool card. So my favorite events from the expansion are Alliance, because it costs 10 money, but you're not only are you getting a province, but you're getting a duchy, but then you're also getting a gold and a silver. Yes, you get an estate and a copper, but it's totally worth doing because you get 2 good victory cards and you get 2 good treasure cards. Well, you get definitely 1 good treasure card and one good victory card, regardless of the case. But it's totally worth doing for just 10 money. It's worth it. The bargain is really cool because it's an easy way of getting cards costing up to 5 for the purchase of 4. But then everyone else gets a horse too, so it's very interactive. Way of the Mouse is a card that lets you set aside a card you're not playing with. So basically it adds an 11th card to the Kingdom supply pile. But it's just one card that's getting set aside, and that's it. So, you know, that's interesting. That's really cool. And the reason, so the way it would work is you play the set aside card, leaving it there. And then the setup is you set aside an unused action costing from 2 to 3. So basically, every time you play an action, you can decide to play the other action card that was set aside instead of the card that you're going to play now as Wave the Mouse, which is really fascinating, really cool. And then Wave the Chameleon is just a very interesting card by changing cards into treasure and treasure into cards. That's just awesome. Wave the Chameleon is my favorite. And so that's it. That is my 10 favorite expansions from Dominion. That's basically my favorite cards from all of the Dominion expansions from 1 to 10 that I love. Man, I just love Dominion. And it's just getting better and better with each expansion. So anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. It was long, but don't forget to leave me a like if you guys liked it. And I'll see you guys again next time. Goodbye.